So, it's Sunday, and it's long ramble time again. Yay. So I just watched WrestleMania, and I've actually seen every WrestleMania, but in recent years I've watched less and less of any other professional wrestling shows. I've just kept up with the entire soap opera by just watching WrestleMania. Because pretty much in the lead up to every match, they have the history that happened for like the entire 6 months before that. So I can keep up with the soap opera that way. Yeah, while I was in the Army, I didn't much like watching Jerry Springer during lunch in a chow hall and everybody screaming about it. I'd go to the other side of the chow hall without the TVs because I wasn't a fan of Springer. I've seen Springer lately too, and I'm even more not a fan of Springer. But professional wrestling was something that I would watch every episode of every organization that was on TV for a couple years. And I actually planned out my day with, Monday night would be Raw, so like I didn't plan anything on Monday nights, and then Thursday nights and Friday nights, I didn't plan anything on those either. And if I was in a volleyball bar league team, I would want us to get the Wednesday night slots. I would want us to play on Wednesday nights rather than Monday, Thursday, or Friday. Pretty much because I was planning my life around my favorite TV shows. And then when my bar league volleyball teams would get switched to Mondays, this happened once, I wouldn't leave the house unless I stuck a VCR tape in the VCR and hit record. I'd put it on long play for 6 hours, because the next step down for 3 hours, you might not catch something if they go overtime, because sometimes the program would run long, so because it was a live show. So yeah, I would really fret over, where's my VCR tapes? Where's my blank VCR tape? I need, I had one that I labeled scratch tape that I could just record over and over again. But sometimes you get one where, like, you want to save that match, so then you relabel it. This is what happened that day, and you put it away. And then if you don't remember to go to the store and buy more VCR tapes, you got to go. This is what used to happen. Okay, now it's just, a completely different medium. It's either DVD-Rs or saving it to a hard drive or something. But at a certain point in my life, I decided that I wasn't going to plan my life around television shows anymore. And this isn't just professional wrestling. This is like, I had friends that would watch the show Friends, and friends that would watch Saturday Night Live religiously. And they would put aside that time every week. And with the advent of the DVR, when it came into my life around 2005, I stopped planning my life around anything on TV, because you can watch it later and you can skip through the commercials, and then it takes even less of your life. But so I'm getting somewhere with this. Around the same time as I started DVRing the professional wrestling rather than slotting my time for it, or recording it with VHS tape, I started taking college classes with a hellish workload. I was working full-time and going to school full-time. Because at that point in my life, I felt like I was behind the power curve because other people had, they left high school, they went right to college, and they had a bachelor's degree at 22 or 23. And, I was 23 or 24. Yeah, 24 when I got out of the military. So 24 years old, and already, they entice you into the military with, hey, we'll pay for your college. They don't tell you that when you get out and start going to college, that all the hot girls that go to college, unless they were also in the military, all those hot girls are going to be like 6 years younger than you when you finally start going, because you used the military to pay for your college. Unless you were a reservist and were going to school while you were in the reserves. I was active duty, so that's something that people need to think about when they join the army for reasons other than I love my country and I want to go kill some foreigners. If you're like me and you were just using it as a stepping stone, you got to realize it takes a chunk out of your life. But I started using professional wrestling as the ambiance for doing homework. And I watched the actual matches a lot less than the vignettes in between the matches that were the drama, because it was like my soap opera, It's like the man soap. And around the same time, mixed martial arts started getting more popular. The UFC was getting more popular. The Ultimate Fighter show came out, and I was hooked from then. I had seen like the first 7 UFC things, and then they started having problems getting pay-per-view with the same carriers that I had. So when I saw those first 7, I was like still a young kid. My dad got them for me because he was more interested in real fighting than the professional wrestling things that we were interested as kids in. So as I stopped watching the matches because I was only interested in the soaps, I started watching the UFC, and their fights are real, or as real as it can get. And I'm going to get into that. As I watched more mixed martial arts fighting, I cared less and less about professional wrestling. And it was weird because I would still have, as an adult, I'd have people who didn't know what to get me for my birthday or Christmas, and they would get me a professional wrestling doll, like in the package, and I have regifted many a doll because I don't play with dolls. Yeah, they're not action figures when they look like they could be dating Barbie. They're the wrong size. They're not like G.I. Joes. You can't move their arms the same way. They're freaking dolls. So the parallel that I'm trying to draw here is that at a certain point in my life, My mind was expanded to the dimensions of larger ideas, and once you get to that point, it's very hard to go back. You can suspend your disbelief for just long enough to enjoy yourself and have fun doing something. But you're going to be reminded that, hey, there's a larger reality out there. This is very akin to me saying that people who go to church can compartmentalize their experiences at church, and then for the rest of the week not be spiritual people and go be scientists in a lab, and then come Sunday they're completely different people, which is good that they can compartmentalize like that, because I'd hate to see their scientific work being muddled with faith. So this is pretty far into a ramble without mentioning anyone else on YouTube. The one person on YouTube that I've been thinking the most about is actually Eagle Eye 1975. Now, he just recently came out with a video about Obama's birth certificate. And I really felt that he made a good point. Not that Obama needs to show his birth certificate, but that people need to be open to the possibility that there might be problems with it. And it does need to be investigated. If people have questions, their questions aren't stupid. They're not, the questions don't go away just by saying that someone's a nutcase. You still have to address the questions. And similarly, Inventorgorilla has had a couple of videos where he says that there's some kind of conspiracy with the lockdown protocol of the elementary school that his daughters go to. And also he has said a few things about thinking that there's a conspiracy behind the amount of UFO movies and UFO shows there are on TV, and he thinks that there's going to be some kind of big revelation coming up. And it sounds a little bit nuttier to me than the whole birther thing with, the birth certificate of Obama. But I still think that in all these cases, you still have to check it out if there's a question. If someone feels strongly enough about their hunch that there's some conspiracy going on, I don't think it's wrong for them to check it out. I think it's wrong for them to spread this hunch as if it were fact, but checking on things is completely okay in my book. There are some leaps that I've seen in conspiracy theories that I just can't follow, but I can follow part of it. There's a lot of the science behind the 9/11 truthers that there's people on both sides of the fence on. But for me, personally, the one bit of evidence that the 9/11 truthers have that I just cannot shake out of my head is the image of squibs coming out of the Twin Towers, much like you would see if something was a controlled demolition. Now, I've seen, the free fall numbers be debunked, and I've seen the pancake theories get debunked, and all these other bits of science. But what I see with my own two eyes is squibs, and what I see with my own two eyes is thermite. I see the gray smoke of aluminum oxide being floating in the air, and it covers the entire the entire lower New York. Just fucking covered in this gray smoke, and no one knows what it is except for someone who's seen a thermite grenade put on top of a Humvee to go right through the engine block. I've seen that, and the smoke looks the same. The orange molten metal that was dripping out of the building and pooling at the bottom looks the same. And there's many different explanations on both sides, but I'm going with my eyes here. I'm saying there's something that needs to be investigated. Yeah. I'm not saying that... and here's where I can't follow on the train of the 9/11 truthers. Because something looks fishy, it must have been a government cover-up, and the president knew about it. And 9/11 is a conspiracy connected to George W. Bush. That's where I'm completely whoa, hold on here. You need to investigate what you have on the ground first, and build your way up to something like that, because I can't follow it. The whole zeitgeist thing, it's just leap after leap to conclusions that I can't follow. And another reason why I've been thinking about Eagle Eye 1975 is because a lot of YouTube, a lot of people who are internet savvy, probably, and that's the filter, but a lot of YouTube is very liberal. And I would say that I'm more liberal than I used to be as a kid, because I was raised in a conservative family. And fiscally, I'm more conservative than most of the people here on YouTube. But I know that socially I am way more liberal than the people that raised me, and they would be ashamed if they heard me say things like equal rights for everyone. So, when I was raised conservatively, there was a definition of conservatism versus liberalism that stuck in my mind. Conservatives want the government to have less to do with your life. They want them out of your business. And liberals want more government interaction in your life. It doesn't really match the definitions of the words, whereas you think conservative means more traditional, and liberal means more modern and stuff. No, and liberal means more liberties. How are you getting more liberties if you want more government interaction in people's lives? That's not freeing you. You're having to interact with the government more. So my definition of liberal versus conservative is split on whether or not you want government to be a bigger part of your life. Which when I extend Republicans as being the conservative party and Democrats being the liberals, what I see is a giant disconnect between the conservatism that the Republicans should have in my mind and what they are. And the liberals are the same. Basically, half of the Republican platform is liberal, and half of the Democrat platform is conservative. And it's very confusing for someone who just wants all of government to just be out of my life, like as much as possible, you know. And it's very unpopular on YouTube or anywhere to say that you're a conservative or you're a Republican or libertarian. Like I think Eagle Eye 1975 would better be described as, but I'm not a Democrat. The highest ranking Democrat that I've voted for that has gotten into office was Mary Landrieu. And she was running for office in Louisiana as a senator. And I had a letter from my union telling me who to vote for. And in that election, they said, okay, you're voting for Obama, you're voting for Landrieu, you're voting for this, and everyone we were supposed to vote for, according to my union, was a Democrat. What they were doing for us lately, I had no clue. It was like, rub their backs now and they'll rub our back later, maybe? I don't know. But I think the whole reason for the union sending out that letter was just not to educate people on the issues at all. It was just to say, hey, we've aligned ourselves with these politicians, so vote for them. Don't worry about why. We'll catch you up later when you're on a job. Hopefully. So the reason why I voted for Landrieu was not because my union told me to. The reason why I voted for her was because I actually wanted to be educated on the issues, and I saw on television that they were about to have a debate between Mary Landrieu and the Republican she was running against, and I can't remember his name. But I'm going to tell you why I voted for her. This debate format would have a question posed to each of the candidates, and they were given a certain number of minutes to answer. So every time her opponent would be given a question, he would completely ignore the fact that there was a question asked of him, and he would start mudslinging against her and start saying like conspiracy theories and just slinging mud at her totally. And when Mary Landrieu was asked the same question, she would at least give a 2 or 3 sentence answer that actually answered the question. The rest of her time she spent doing what I call name dropping. She would say, here's the answer to your question, and I've worked on this issue with this person in this capacity on this project, and I've worked with this person, and I've worked with this person. And she was just name dropping. And that's how she figured she was winning the debate. But how she actually won me over was the fact that she at least put in the 2 or 3 sentences about the question that was asked of her, to actually say where she stood on that issue. Whereas her opponent spent his entire time mudslinging and not answering the questions. So I guess I voted for her because I knew where she stood, and it was for more jobs for us. I was living in Louisiana, and the hurricanes had recently done a really bad number on the coastline, and there was already a lot of jobs in the area anyway, just for hurricane repairs. So, based on the jobs issue alone, I voted for her. Another thing that I think about when I see Eagle Eye 1975's videos, it's an unrelated thing, but I see it as a conservative value. But I haven't seen a video where he talks about this, because he's going to be a teacher. And one of the problems that I see very often, still even in my life when I see debates on YouTube, is the thought that everyone can be a winner. It's people being titty babies, they're all the way until they're 40 or 50 and not being weaned. It's the idea that stems from people being in programs where there's no score kept in the Pee-wee football. And afterwards, everyone gets ice cream. No one's denied anything, because there are no losers. And I really think, there needs to be more competition-based learning, because there needs to be something that instills into people that there aren't always good outcomes for everyone. Not everyone will be a winner at the end of some arguments. I'm not trying to talk about anything in particular here. Just this is my feeling about people needing to know that you can't always give everyone ice cream at the end of the ball game when we all grow up. Here on YouTube, of late, there's been a group of people that will try to solve issues by saying, where's our common ground, and can't we all just have this one part of the argument where we're right? Does there really have to be a loser to the argument? And that's how they'll try to solve everything. And it bugs me, because there are times when people have nothing right about their arguments whatsoever, and they do not deserve to be pandered to in such a fashion. But they seem to think that they deserve this. And if you argue with them enough and destroy their arguments enough, they will say, hey, you're being mean by not letting me be right a little bit, and that in itself, there's a lot of people here on YouTube that don't understand debate terms, and didn't take public speaking courses or communications courses. But there's a lot of people here on YouTube that have had the YouTube school of debate, where everybody knows what an ad hom is. Everyone knows that ad hominem means that you're insulting someone's person rather than arguing the merit of the argument. I'm going to go a bit farther than that into these debate terms. There's a special type of argumentum ad hominem whereby someone uses a mix of that fallacy and what is also, it's also the fallacy of ignoratio elenchi, another fancy fucking Latin word. Basically means kind of like the literary red herring. But what it is instead of arguing the merits of the argument that started the argument, they will say, you've been mean to me by not letting me win some, so you're a meanie, and so therefore I'm a winner. That wasn't the original argument. It's changing the subject. And that is the argument that people use to pull people back to the table and say, okay, can't we all be winners? And if we're all winners, then at the end of the day, we're all going home with the ideas that we came to the table with in the first place. There is a lot of what I would consider liberal thought that says that everyone's opinion is equally valid and equally important. And I completely disagree. If we are going to have any sort of progress, there needs to be a point where people can't cry about being the losers of an argument in order to win the argument of who made who cry, and then, also be considered winners because they were losers. And that kind of reminds me of MMA in a way, too, because there's conventional fighting in mixed martial arts now. There are rules whether or not people realize it, because some people think that mixed martial arts is just human cockfighting. But there are certain rules by each athletic commission over whatever jurisdiction it is. But the Nevada State Athletic Commission is the most popular, and their rules get exported to many other states and many other provinces around the world who want to just adopt something that's worked for another place. And some of these rules for fighting are no biting, no kicking to the groin, no dirty fighting like that, no pulling hair, no poking out eyes, right? And those they make sense, as far as being sporting. There's rules like no small digit manipulation. You can't grab on someone's finger and break it, because that would be an easy way to win. No dropping people on their heads. You can't spike someone on their head in MMA. It's not like professional wrestling where the tombstone pile driver is the all-powerful move that, or the DDT. Those moves aren't allowed in MMA. There's a reason why you don't see them. It's because they're trying to protect the careers of the fighters. So there's no kicking to the head of a downed opponent. So if someone's on the ground, you can't kick them in the head. All of those rules are there for the fighter's protection. And the one that is the standout in my mind of all of these rules is there's no hitting to the base of the spine. This is a rule that's both in MMA and in boxing. You can't punch someone right here because it's considered a cheap shot because it's right next to their motor cortex, and it's like an instant knockout if you hit someone correctly there. And repeated blows to there are closer to the brain in a very bad way, the brain stem, and can cause, over time, what you see in, say, Muhammad Ali. People looking punch drunk. And what I'm now seeing in Chuck Liddell. So, here's this conventional fighting, right? Inside this cage there are rules. And mixed martial arts it's built on the premise that it's as real as fighting can get. But if you look at each one of those rules, if you were in a real fight situation outside of this cage, say someone was trying to mug you, the first things you would want to do are bite, kick to the groin, poke their eyes out, punch to the back of the head, spike them on their head. All of these things are things that you would want on the table. You want those as options, because those are the dirty fighting that works. You want to incapacitate someone. So it's not really real fighting. And, okay, this is a really long metaphor here. But if you take the type of arguing that you see here on YouTube, where people are drawn back into a discussion when someone says, "Hey, I've lost a little bit. Can you let me win a little?" Take these same people who are discussing these arguments and put them in the real world situations, and there are no conventions like this. You take an atheist who doesn't know why he should be an atheist and stick him, next to a real world evangelistic pastor, he could get converted very easily just because they don't have the same conventions. There are things that religious people will not say on YouTube because they know that it's not just the person that they're talking to that they have to worry about. If they say something completely fallacious, somebody else is going to pick up on it, comment on their video, and then send a message to the person that they're talking to and say, "Hey, don't be pulled in by that trick." So, the complete thought that I'm having here is, when I see Eagle Eye 1975, I just get taken to this feeling that this everyone's a winner mentality that gets instilled in kids it has real world consequences, and a lot of them are bad. I've got another theory as far as the batshit crazy conspiracy theories, and I don't think many of you have heard of this one because it's my own, but it goes like this. We are headed for a liberalized dystopia in the near future, where it will be illegal to not pay your child's cell phone bill. And it will be illegal to not get your child a cell phone at the age of, say, 8, so that they could possibly call the police because they're scared about something or because they're scared of you. And anyone who refuses to give their kid a phone or tries to take their kid's phone away as a punishment will be guilty of negligence in some fashion, where the child will be able to have legal recourse against their parents. for trying to silence their expression, for trying to keep them from being able to grow socially by being able to talk to their friends, from trying to keep them from being able to call the police on their own parents. We are headed towards this point where kids will be that empowered. I know that part of it is just really crazy when I say this, that a parent could be put in jail for taking away their kid's cell phone. But, 50 years from now, someone's going to come across this video and say, wow, someone saw where we were headed. And it might not be exactly the way that I'm seeing it here, but we're headed in that direction. Now, I just remembered, I saw a video from Hatred42, where his television went on the fritz, and he was trying to entertain his entire family with the computer, because the family's home entertainment center is down without the television. And I feel for him, but being an English major, I've read a whole bunch of books. And the last time there was a power outage here, I actually lit a candle right over there and started reading a book, and I was fine. I had forgotten to charge my cell phone before that, and I had like 1 bar of battery, and I decided, well, in case an emergency call happens, I'm just not going to even play on my phone. I'm just going to read a book. And 3 hours later, the power came on, and I was okay. But losing the TV would be a really big thing to me. There's more TVs in my house, apparently, than there are in Hatred's house. I actually use a big flat screen TV as a monitor because I like the versatility that it has between being a TV or a monitor. And I watch most of my television on it. I actually get most of my entertainment from the internet. And in this house, we've actually gotten rid of all cable and satellite. I still have an FTA receiver hooked up, but I haven't reprogrammed it for any dubious purposes in a very long time, because I don't need to, because pretty much everything I want to see is on the internet. And we recently set up a bridging LAN network for our wireless routers, and I actually gave away as hand-me-downs my old routers because we couldn't reprogram their firmware to do this. But basically, we've got a lot better signal in our house because of multiple routers. And one of them is connected to the Xbox 360 in the den, where there's no cable going to that television. There's no satellite signal going to that television. We do have an HD antenna because we can get 12 channels and 4 of them are Spanish. And they're sideband channels. But we haven't needed it once we cut ourselves off from the 500 channels with nothing on. On the Xbox 360, the reason why it's hooked up to the LAN is not just for Xbox Live, but there's this application where you can put Netflix on your Xbox and use your Xbox to stream Netflix. And we pay for a Netflix account, and we get streaming videos from them. And their library has been enough for any time that I want to use the electric babysitter, as it were. I put my niece and nephew in front of any sort of cartoon they have, and they have entire seasons of all sorts of cartoons. My niece, because of my brother's divorce, her grades for grammar seem to be less than they were going into the grade that she's in. And like her mid-year report card looked a little bit worse than when she started, and we need to bring her back up. So I started playing this one video called Word World, instead of Voltron and Spider-Man and Iron Man and Superman. I started putting on Word World whenever I decide to use the electronic babysitter. And it's wrong to put your kids in front of a TV, kids that are entrusted to you, and expect that TV to keep them busy for 30 minutes while you want to do something. I'm guilty of doing that. I'm also guilty of using fruit snacks to buy the love of my niece and nephew, because I couldn't live with myself if I used like chocolate bars or something. That would be wrong. But the fruit snacks are 100% fruit, And what's really wrong about what I'm doing here is I tell them, hey, you want some candy? And then I give them the fruit snacks. And I know, like, when they get older, one of them's going to say, hey, Uncle Mike, you fucker, you told us that was candy. That was just fruit. But whatever. It works now. What else do I have for you? There's a really nice debate going on between AbusiveAntitheist and Julian J. Delphiki 42. The other 42. There's Hatred 42, and then there's J. Delphiki 42. And don't get the two mixed up. Julian is he's giving Charles the arguments that I'd like to watch them hammer out. They're drama free, no drama, just all about the arguments, and I'm enjoying watching the back and forth, and I hope it goes on for a long time. Okay, so I saw a video by Eagle Eye 1975, a video by Hatred 42, a video by Got That Funk, all about the Terry Jones thing, where he burned a Koran, and some extremist Muslims in retaliation did some very horrible things all the way on another continent because they heard that he burned a Koran. And people want to have him be held responsible for the actions of the extremists because he provoked them. And what I have to say about that right now is we are headed towards the now second annual Draw Mohammed Day. Do you all remember what happened on the last Draw Mohammed Day? Of course, everyone knew that we were making a statement, and that statement would enrage some radicals in some countries. Everyone knew this, but we figured, if we do it in large enough numbers, then, those radicals, maybe they won't even know what to do. They'll be like, I don't know which person I can blame when I want to go chop a journalist's head off, So, yeah, we have the Draw Muhammad Day. I drew two. One for Got That Funk and in the style of Have You Seen Me, and then one for Thunderfoot. And afterwards, I learned that a whole bunch of countries had censored Google and YouTube from their people being able to use those things. Like they used the country's internet filter to cut those and other sites, like Facebook, off of people's ability to get them in their country. So the whole thing started out about us not wanting to be censored by somebody else's beliefs, right? It's wrong for someone to say you can't draw the Prophet Mohammed if we're not Muslims. We should be able to draw whatever we want according to our own beliefs. They're drawings. They're just simple fucking drawings. And it was about censorship, about South Park having to put a bear costume over the Prophet Muhammad, and then even the bear being not good enough. They can't depict him at all, So there was all this censorship going on, and so that's what it was about. But at the end of the day, after Draw Muhammad Day, the result was a whole bunch of countries banning Google, banning YouTube, banning Facebook, and pretty much a whole bunch more censorship. So we were fighting against censorship, but it resulted in more censorship. Now, are you going to hold the people who fought against censorship, that we were fighting against, are you going to hold those people responsible for the censorship? I'm going to argue no. The reaction that they provoked was completely unpredictable, really. And I think the same thing is the case with Terry Jones. I mean, he doesn't know who is going to see his message and who is going to use his message as the rationalization for the evil things that they want to do. The same evil people halfway across the world, they could probably look at a Sears catalog and see the underwear models and get offended by that and then chop a journalist's head off for that. You never know what's going to set those fuckers off. They're fucking extremists. So, I don't blame Terry Jones for what happened elsewhere. I blame Terry Jones for his own bigotry and insensitive actions. And sometimes people mean to be insensitive, and sometimes they don't. And when people mean to be insensitive, they have to live with what they did. Let's see. I also wanted to talk about the Japan versus God tag video that I did, and I did a recap of all the results that I got, and I did let people know that I was not asking loaded questions in order to make fun of them later, because I'm the one asking the question of people. I'm not, it'd be different if I found some people who had certain beliefs without me asking. But if I'm asking people's opinion on something, I don't think that it's right for me to make fun of them. But what I was trying to show was that just about everyone knows someone who believes that everything happens for a reason, and that reason is God's will or God's purpose or God's plan or however you want to say it. or God allowing it to happen. Just about everybody knows someone who believes this, or they believe it themselves. And the people that ran TamTamPamela off of YouTube, they didn't believe that. There was a lot of them in the comments threads of her videos before her channel got shut down that were saying, no one fucking believes that. You're making a mockery of our religion. Nobody believes that. You know? And I'm like, you don't have to look too fucking far to find someone who believes that shit. You know? Especially in America. This is land of the fucktards. You know? We have the fucktard Bible Belt here. You don't have to go that fucking far to find someone who believes that way. So, the reason why I made the entire tag video was basically because I thought that the reasons that those people had for harassing TamTamPamela off of YouTube were completely wrong. I don't know that I would have accepted any reason for harassing her off of YouTube for what she did, but that particular reason ticked me off because it just was completely wrong. And in my video, I believe I gave the example of Pat Robertson talking about Haiti, because TamTamPamela had already made a video about that. You know, it's the same thing. God did this natural disaster because of whatever reason. So, while that power outage had happened and I decided to read a book, I picked up Hitchens' The Portable Atheist, because it's been sitting there collecting dust since somebody gave it to me for Christmas, or Atheistmas. And let's see. Right here, it says that the Bishop of Carlisle once said about a Glasgow bomb plot and some devastating floods in the north of England. It says, the Bishop of Carlisle said, "This is a strong and definite judgment, because the world has been arrogant and going its own way. We are reaping the consequences of our moral degradation." And the reason why he said that these devastating floods were happening in the north of England, and these bomb plots were being discovered in Glasgow, was because recent legal moves to allow more rights to homosexuals. And he also said that this placed us in a situation where we are liable for God's judgment, which is intended to call us to repentance. So, there's that quote from the Bishop of Carlisle, and also Geoffrey Fisher, the Archbishop of Canterbury, has another quote in here where he says, "The very worst it could do would be to sweep a vast number of people at one moment from this world into the other and more vital world, into which anyhow they must pass at one time." So, basically, the things that happen in this world, not very important, because God has this plan, or will, or purpose, and when people get caught in it, that's when he wanted to take you. So, yeah, so there's two. Bishop of Carlisle, Archbishop of Canterbury. Those are from the Anglican Church. And the Anglican Church is not some fringe fucking, mom pop prayer shop. This is a big fucking institution. And, yeah, that's in the forward for the Portable Atheist by Christopher Hitchens. Yeah. So there's two more examples of this. Whatever happens according to God's will, plan, purpose, whatever, or allowance. So, two more examples that just pissed me off that people didn't see that what TamTamPamela was making videos about was actually very important social commentary. And the last thing I'm going to say is that tomorrow I am going to be FedExing something overnight to be delivered to the house of AldusValor, because I know that ArsenicCigarettes is going to be there for his birthday party. And a while back I did a favor for ArsenicCigarettes whereby she owed me a coupon for a genital piercing. And what I'm going to use this coupon for is I would like ArsenicCigarettes to give Crazy to the Core a genital piercing on his penis. And I've actually picked out in this box right here that this is the piercing that I want to be on his penis. And here it is right here. Isn't that awesome? Can you imagine how rock star you would be if this was your genital piercing? You're welcome, James.